Eamon Khan here for Seconds Out. Pleasure once again to be joined by the great Duke McKenzie, MBE, former three-weight world champion, no less. Duke, we were talking, of course, off camera about boxing and our training. You were telling me about your runs you've been going on. Do you get that runner's high still? How much running do you get in on a daily basis?
Well, to be honest with you, hey man, I've probably run the whole time I've been retired. But when I say run, I don't run actually, I jog. I go out for a little jog twice a week. And it's all about the consistency. Do you see what I mean? I either do Monday, Wednesday, or Wednesday, Friday, or give myself a couple of little break in between. And right now, pardon the pun, I feel on top of the world. Um, my training, I'm so diligent with my training, it's just inbred in me. Do you see what I mean? I can't not train, but I'm not training with any real intensity. The beauty about training now is I train purely for the enjoyment. So I've got my Depeche Mode on. I could be anywhere. I could be in Saint-Tropez or Paris, or I could be in the Bahamas, or I could be in the Croydon High Street as I was. Do you see what I mean? Just running with my music on. And it's a beautiful feeling. Why the government don't spend more time promoting and pushing health and fitness for your mental health, I really don't know. I mean, when I've just come back from my run, like I said, I mean, I trained yesterday. I was in the gym yesterday. I was doing a little bit of a session, did about 8 rounds body sparring, a few bit rounds skipping, a bit of shadow boxing, one thing and another. I had a lovely workout. And I was bouncing off the walls yesterday. And I don't normally train back to back. I train Monday, then I have a couple of days off, then I go again. But yeah, I was just feeling it, and I just went out. I did my run today. Like South Hill, I feel absolutely brand new. I feel like Superman.
Are you feeling this potential return to the ring, it seems, for Tyson Fury? We've been teased for many weeks about his sparring that he's been doing, and an announcement in an imminent journalist within the boxing scene are saying that they're hearing a few whispers. Is it something that you're looking forward to, the return of Tyson Fury to the top of the heavyweight tree?
I like being retired, and I'd probably beat him right now because I'm up to about heavyweight. Do you see what I mean? Do you know what? To be able to train just for the pure enjoyment is such a beautiful feeling. When you don't have to make weight, you can eat and drink what you want, go and do a little jog, flex your muscles a little bit. It's beautiful. I think everybody's quite bored really with Tyson Fury about he's coming back, he's retiring, I'm coming back. He turns it on and off like a tap of water. And I like to say, people just get a bit fed up. Well, I'm sick to the backseat of it. He's either going to do it or he's not. If you're going to do it, great, get on with it. You're decent, you've got a future in the sport of boxing. But if you're not, then shut up and get on with it. Life goes on.
Where do you see his place in heavyweight boxing at the moment? When it comes to the competition, do you still feel he competes and wins fights against the likes of Usyk, AJ, Dubois, those who have held titles recently or currently do?
Two out of the three that you just mentioned he doesn't beat because he's already lost to one of them in Oleksandr Usyk. He's already been beaten by him quite convincingly, I think, twice. And Daniel Dubois would do a number on Tyson Fury. So Fury doesn't want no part of Dubois. Even if Dubois gets beat by Usyk, which I might suggest he might, because Usyk, in my opinion, is in a league of his own. If Daniel Dubois was fighting anybody else other than Oleksandr Usyk, I'd back him to win. He's young, he's hungry, he hits hard, he does a lot of things right. He does more right than he does wrong now. Now he's addressed his psychological issues, which he clearly had. He's like a different fighter now. He's almost like a breath of fresh air. You don't get any rubbish talking from him, any crap talk. You don't get Dubois, acting like an idiot and, doing stupid things for attention. He just gets in and does the job.
Can I get your read on Tyson Fury versus Daniel Dubois? Because if Dubois does come out of the rematch against Usyk with the undisputed belts, that's an in-house fight for Queensberry and a way for them to do a huge fight, which would garner a lot of interest in the UK. But you're saying there you don't feel that Fury would come out on the winning end of it. Why is that?
I've never really thought Fury would come out on the winning end of beating Daniel Dubois. Like I say, you've got a young fighter on the way up who clearly right now doesn't know how to lose or wants to lose and has improved immensely. And you've got an ex-champion who's had a few chinks in his armour, who's clearly on the slide, on the way down. Now, when that fight gets tough, because it will, Dubois will be able to draw on his vast experience, which he has now. There's had one or two shaky moments in his career where people say that he quit, which he did in one of the fights. I think the Joe Joyce fight, but I don't think it was that in the Oleksandr Usyk fight. So I think he's a much improved fighter, Dubois. And like I say, I back him to beat anybody with the exception of Oleksandr Usyk. And I think if he fought Fury, I think he'd stop him. He would probably knock him clean out of that ring because Daniel Dubois is a different animal now, and he's almost like found a way to defuse what he'd done it with Joshua, and he's on a bus from that. Obviously, if Fury was his next fight, I bet he'd get the same result.
I spoke to John Fury over in Budapest, who's helping his sons Tommy and Roman prepare for their comebacks to the ring. And speaking to John, it's for the first time since the first fight with Usyk and the second fight with Usyk for his son Tyson. And he felt that, first of all, the shape that he wasn't in good enough shape to beat Oleksandr Usyk and didn't bear resemblance to the peak shape of him, which was the fights he had over in America against Tom Schwartz and Otto Wallin. And also he mentioned that he wasn't too happy with Sugar Hill being the man in the corner, guiding him to the fights, feeling that Sugar Hill wasn't capable of teaching Tyson. And Tyson, to paraphrase John, isn't someone who's going to learn all that much more in boxing. It's more of a case of getting him fit and not trying to tweak and rebuild him as a fighter. What do you think about the current status in terms of Tyson as a fighter and also the shape he was in for that second Usyk fight?
Well, if he wasn't in shape for the second Usyk fight, that's on him, nobody else. You're going into a world title fight. There's no excuse. You can't say, well, I wasn't in shape, I didn't prepare, didn't have enough time to prepare. You know, you can't suddenly go, oh, I lost the fight and then start making excuses, you know, because you just open up a can of worms, really. Do you see what I mean? If that's the case, then it's bad prep. He's only got himself to blame. As far as his coach is concerned, then they chose that coach. You know, they could have chosen anybody else to train him. A lot of good coaches out there. They could have chosen anybody else. It's easy to start slagging people off and saying, well, it's the coach's fault and A, B, C, D. You know, when you're losing in a major contest, a major world title fight, you've got to take your licks and you've got to stand up and be counted. It's nobody else's fault but your own. Because ultimately, when that bell goes, you take a step forward and the corner take a step back. So you're on your own. The prep's done in the training camp. You know, you Fury saying all the time, I'm going into camp, you know, and he's running along, he's got his camera and he's going, I'm running along, and he goes like that, you know, I've got my coach beside me. And who'd you see? Sugar Hill, the guy who supposedly gave him all the wrong advice in the first fight. So I wouldn't read into that at all.
The other thing he said that John mentioned, obviously John got a lot of stick with the conflicting messages in the corner for that first fight, which led to John being out of the corner in the second one. He said that when Tyson was hurt in the ninth in that first fight, it was his instructions that led him to not being knocked out because he told him to, you know, get his feet set and recover as opposed to looking to try and get that knockout. I wanted to ask you in terms of your career, whenever you felt those moments where you were under the pressure or buzzed, what were the instructions you would get from your coach to react to those moments?
Well, you know, my coach, when we actually got to fight day, my coach never had to talk to me. You know, there was very little communication because the communication had already been done in the prep in training camp. My coach was a man of very few words, Colin Smith. He was a man of, he's sadly passed away, God rest his soul, recently. But he was a man of very, very few words. Mickey Duff, on the other hand, my manager, was very animated. But Mickey Duff, when I say he was animated, he would always talk to me in a very soft, simplistic way. Mickey Duff, some fighters you'd have to scream at, like a Lloyd Hannigan, as an example. You'd have to scream at him. John McGarvey, another one. You'd have to read the absolute riot act to them to get them going. But Mickey Duff used to talk to me very, very calmly, very, very measured, and it was very, very self-assuring. And when Mickey Duff spoke, you listened because that voice was a voice of authority. So my corner was always calm. Even when I was in trouble, they were very, very calm. Another good corner man was Denny Mancini, the late Denny Mancini. He was great in the corner as well. A good motivator.
Mm-hmm. Going to this past weekend's action, we saw Johnny Fisher and Dave Allen have a return fight, and it was a conclusive end, which left no doubt in the fight with Dave Allen stopping Johnny Fisher in that fifth round. What level do you think that fight was contested at?
Well, it's a domestic fight, right? It's a domestic fight between two decent domestic British fighters. I mean, they could have stuck a British title fight tag on the line of that fight because that's probably where these guys lay right now. Now, the fact that Allen's won, he knows and everybody else knows he's not a world-class fighter and he's not pretending to be. And it's really refreshing. It's really nice to see somebody win a fight and be humble about it. I mean, let's get it right. He's beaten Johnny Fisher, who, in my opinion, was being projected to be the next great white hope. He was going to be this sensational great guy, knocking everybody out, looking good, A, B, C, D. Then they stepped him up in class and, you know, he fell apart. So the fact that he got a decision in their first fight against Allen, and everybody said Allen should have won, and I, for one, thought Allen did win. Not by a lot, but I thought he nicked the decision. And Allen's gone away and he's right the wrong, because he went away and said to himself, you know what, I won that first fight. And when the phone rang for the return, he couldn't believe it. He probably thought Christmas had come early. He was like, do you know what, they actually want to fight me again. Well, this time, I'm not going to leave anything to chance. I'm going to get it right. And if you listen to the talk between him and his coach, you know, in the pre-fight build-up and also on fight day, they were so confident. And there's nothing worse than fighting a guy that really knows in his heart of hearts that, you know, he knows he can win. And he knew he could win. And it was such a bad knockout. There's a saying in boxing, if you get knocked down, always try and land on your back, because if you can look up, you can get up. But he landed face first. And knockouts like that, speaking from experience, I've been chinned once or twice myself in my career, so I know what I'm talking about. But when you go face first, it's horrible. And you don't get over those sort of knockouts. I don't care who you are. I don't care what anybody else says. I've been in that position where that's happened to me, but fortunately I've landed on my back. And also, when I got chinned, I was fighting in world-class against world-class operators in world title fights. Do you see what I mean? Mm. So it wasn't at domestic level. The fact that he's been knocked out at domestic level, the alarm bells have to be ringing all around him, because the fights only get harder. The opposition only gets better. You don't recover from a knockout like that, because the minute he gets clipped again, the alarm bells are going to ring. Now, when I saw that fight, the two things that really struck me was, first of all, Johnny Fisher's ring walk. He looked petrified, absolutely petrified on the ring walk. And by the time he'd got into the ring, he looked like he didn't even want to be there. Now, I don't know his coach. I'm not bad-mouthing him, but what I'm saying is, whatever instruction they gave him, whatever prep they gave him, was clearly wrong. He's 6 foot, whatever, 6'5", whatever. And when you see a big guy, strapping guy like that, just pouring with the jab, there was no snap behind it. There was no real devil behind his work, any of it. He was pouring with the jab. He was petrified. When you start that gives the other guy confidence. Allen couldn't believe his luck. He thought, this guy doesn't even want to fight. I'm just going to get in there, sit on his chest, which he did, and just started banging away. And he must have thought Christmas had come early, because he was hitting him so often, and he was just warming up quite nicely by his standards. You know, I made him win one of the first 4, Allen. I gave the other 3 to Fisher. But come that 5th round, again, the alarm bell started to ring, because he got hurt in their first fight in the 5th round. So Allen went, you know, I'm going to put it on him again. And this time, he closed the show. Now, that's, like I say, it was a terrible knockout. And I'm not trying to kick him while he's down. I don't know Johnny Fisher. I wished him all the best for the future, and I hope he can come back. But, and there's a big but, I don't know anybody that's been knocked out like that, that's made a successful return to boxing and actually gone on to win things.
There was a 5-month gap between the first fight and the second one, and that proved to not be enough of a time to claw back the heel of experience on Dave Allen for Johnny Fisher. How long do you think it would be before Johnny could be in another fight where he would then beat Dave?
Well, let's put it this way: he ain't going to beat Dave Allen right now. His career's going in a different direction. He's very much on the ascendancy. I would like to see Allen. If I just talk about him for 1 second,
sure.
You know, I'd like to see him in a British title fight, because for him, that's his level. He may never get or ever be a world-class fighter, but he's good enough, I think, to fight for the British title. I'm not saying he's going to win, because David Adelaide actually holds that championship belt right now, but that's a good fight, in my opinion. That's a good fight for him to be able to say I box for the domestic British title is a very prestigious championship to have, by the way. I love being British champion. I was British champion twice at flyweight and at featherweight. There's a stone difference between those weights, and it's 2 of the proudest moments of my life, being British champion. So to be able to say you're the best in your country before you think about anything else, I think that's where Alan fits right now. Fisher, on the other hand, I don't know if he's going to get to that level. I don't, because anybody that he fights is going to have so much confidence now, and they're going to be going straight at him, and they're going to try and steamroll that kid. And unless he can make dramatic changes to his whole makeup, and adopt a completely different boxing style, then the writing's on the wall. The writing's on the wall. It is.
A lot of the time when fighters do take defeats, I'm not saying specifically in this case, but in a generic or general sense with boxing, just the way it is, the brutal sport it is, sometimes the finger gets pointed towards the trainer. Do you think that's going to be the case here, where Johnny does need a refresh and a rethink of maybe his style and fine tuning of what he is as a fighter?
Well, look, let's put it this way. If I believe his trainer's Mark Tibbs, right? I don't
Yeah.
know Mark Tibbs. I've only met him a couple of times. I know his dad a little bit better. I'm not friends with them. You understand? I'm not. We don't socialise. We don't mix or anything like that. But I believe that's Mark Tibbs. So he would have had a lot of what we call old school training methods, which clearly don't work today. There was a time where in the late 70s, at the Olympic Games, 76, I think it was, where the Russians used to adopt a very similar style, where they would hold their hand out in your face and then nail you with the backhand. Do you see what I mean? But Johnny Fisher, that was a poor man's version of that style. He had the left hand out and he just left it out, and he wasn't backing it up with anything. He was just, like I say, pouring with the jab. So there was no snap on the jab, and there was nothing coming behind the jab. And I believe at one point or several points in over the rounds that they completed, the coach was saying to him, "You're winning these rounds." Now, if I'm Johnny Fisher's coach, I'm not going to say to you when you're winning these rounds. I'm going to say you need to really pick the pace up and close this one out, because you can't just keep. You're not going to win the fight just by having a lazy jab and not putting nothing behind it. They should have been reading the right act to him, stuck a rocket up his backside, and really got him going, because he seemed to be just going through the motions. Whether that was the pressure of the fight that had got to him, or whether he was getting hurt and initially didn't show it, but eventually it showed. Only they will know. But I might suggest he gets a new coach, because, if that's the best that Mark Tibbs can do, then it clearly didn't work with him, and it ain't going to work again. Do you see what I mean? I wouldn't even think about fighting Alan again. I'd go in a completely different direction, because if he fights him again anytime soon, well, he might as well retire from the sport, because he'll get done again.
One final topic I want to discuss with you, and that is the official confirmed return to the ring for Manny Pacquiao, who fights for the WBC welterweight title against Mario Barrios. Ripe old age, Manny is at the moment, but coming back to return to boxing. A lot of people kind of, when they see fighters who have obviously their heyday has passed and they return to the ring, a lot kind of feel a worry, not just in terms of the health, which is obviously paramount, but also in terms of the financial side to it, to see as if they've retained their money that they made from the sport. Do you worry on that sort of sense too, that Manny's returning for that purpose, alongside, of course, maybe one last go at a bit of glory?
I feel really quite saddened, to be honest with you, with this whole state of affairs, because Manny Pacquiao has been such a great servant for the sport of boxing, and he's an 8-time 8th division world champion, which kind of puts my success into some sort of order, if you will, because I thought 3 was pretty decent, but boy, he's gone to a whole new stratosphere in terms of being the most successful boxer of all time, because you can't win 8 world titles in 8 weight divisions without being special. However, it doesn't matter how special Manny Pacquiao is, he's clearly past his sell-by date. We're not looking at the tornado that destroyed so many good fighters like Eric Morales, like Miguel Cotto, like Ricky Hatton, like Oscar De La Hoya. He was cleaning these guys up like they were working for him. He was just wiping them out. Do you see what I mean? We're not looking at that same Manny Pacquiao that blazed this terror through 8 weight divisions. And if you look at Pacquiao's resume, he was knocking guys out in every weight division that he had, which will tell you he's a genuine puncher, southpaw, menace. So, but we're not looking at that anymore. We're looking at a slow tired, worn out guy that, for whatever his reason, he still thinks he can light that torch and he can still produce that kind of a performance. No, he can't. I'd be shocked if Pacquiao won at the weekend against Barrios. I mean, people say that Barrios isn't a great champion. You don't need to be great right now. You just got to be solid at what you do, and that's what Barrios is. He's a solid champion, and I don't think Pacquiao's going to beat that kid.
Well, we'll wait and see. Duke, that's the end of my questions. Appreciate your time once again, and another brilliant, direct, and insightful conversation. Looking forward to our next one already. Thank you so much for speaking to Seconds Out. Looking forward to seeing you on TalkSport as well too. Really enjoy your insights there as well.
I appreciate you. Thanks a lot, Emma. God bless, mate. Have a great day.